Welcome to the CEO Insider Podcast, brought to you by YTexas. My name is Sandy McIlree. In this episode, we'll talk to the president of the University of North Texas, Dallas, Bob Mong. Prior to becoming the third president of UNT Dallas, Bob was the editor-in-chief of the Dallas Morning News. While at the Dallas Morning News, he helped the paper win 9 Pulitzer Prizes. Bob also served as a Pulitzer Prize juror and chaired Pulitzer committees, choosing winners in photography and public service. Bob talks about the future of journalism, the mission of the University of North Texas, Dallas, and shares with us a story about a Pulitzer Prize winner that got overshadowed by a snowstorm. Enjoy this episode of the CEO Insider Podcast with the president of the University of North Texas, Dallas, Mr. Bob Mong. Bob, I'm very excited to talk to you about a lot of things. I want to talk to you about what you're doing at the University of North Texas, Dallas. But given your experience in journalism, I said to myself, what a great opportunity to talk to a guy that has seen it all in the world of journalism with your extensive career and your time as editor-in-chief at the Dallas Morning News. I'm curious about journalism and where it's going, not the media part of it, the journalism part of it. Is it still alive and well, or is it so fragmented into, okay, our audience is conservative, our audience is liberal, let's write articles that make them happy?
Well, it is fragmented. The revolution from analog to digital totally blew up journalism, blew up the business model. Mm-hmm. And I don't think it's surprising that it's going to take some years to put it back together again. But I think companies that operate strategically, companies that aren't afraid to be comfortable and throw themselves into the digital sphere are the ones who are going to survive. I think the other thing is there are a lot of interesting models being created, some state-supported and donor-supported, like public radio, National Public Radio. I think the Texas Tribune in Austin is a great example of something that is very focused on state government and politics, but they've built a very viable business model. I think they've been around for 7 or 8 years now, and it seems to be self-sustaining. So I think if you're not afraid of this new world, you can really build an audience. It's just the mass media audience is gone. So you have to realize that.
Right. And I know that you retired from journalism back in, was it 2015?
Yeah, May of 2015.
Do you feel like journalism the paper business in particular was slow to get on board with the digital wave, and they kind of missed the boat? They didn't adapt fast enough, or was the technology just moving so fast nobody could keep up?
Well, again, some did better than others. I mean, we always stayed profitable at the Dallas Morning News. It was hard, but by being, I think, it was a public company, but it was family run. Mm-hmm. So its ownership structure was a lot like the New York Times. You couldn't buy it unless the family relented. And in the case, say, of the Washington Post, Jeff Bezos came in and bought it because the family let him do that. And actually, the Post has been much stronger financially since Bezos did that. They've grown their reach, they've grown their staff, and they're very digitally focused, and their journalism is every bit as serious, if not more serious, than it was before. So I really think some were faster than others. The morning news was, I think, a little faster than most to get into digital journalism, but we certainly should have done it faster than we did.
Right. I've made the comparison to people say no one reads the news anymore, and I point out an example of a picture taken in the mid-1950s, and everyone was on a train, and they were looking at a newspaper. And and then a picture taken in 2017, everyone was looking at their phone. The desire for the consumption of information is still there. It's just delivered differently.
Absolutely. It's just if anything, the interest is greater. I mean, you take an institution like the Dallas Morning News. I mean, even the people who still like the paper version. They tend to be older, wealthier, better educated voters. They're almost all voters. But it's become a niche product for those people. And so the online morning news reaches a very different audience, a much more diverse audience.
I still enjoy picking up the newspaper. I still like flipping through the news. I do. I still enjoy it. Although here in my hometown of Austin, Texas, the Austin American-Statesman has done a fantastic job with their online presence. Their app is fantastic, and I've always thought their writing was really good. Bob, who are some of your favorite writers? Who are the people that you read in the newspaper? I always enjoyed Mike Royko. Who are some guys like that to you?
Oh yeah, no. Royko was great. His book about the daily regime boss was one of the best journalism books ever written. But there's just so many great investigative reporters, so many great sports columnists. It's just a huge era that I miss.
Mm-hmm. Well, you've made the transition well. You're now the president of the University of North Texas in Dallas. You've been there for a few years now, right?
I'm in my fourth. I'm about 3.5 years into it. It's been one of the most meaningful things I've ever done. I always look forward to going to work. I like journalism. I always see that as a platinum bar standard of whether you're happy or not. Do you look forward to going to work? And I always did, even in the toughest times. But I feel the same way here. I really look forward to getting here and getting stuff done.
Bob, have you drawn on many of your experiences from your life as a journalist and your time at the Dallas Morning News that has helped you out as a leader at UNT Dallas?
Yeah, I mean, I've had hot seat jobs since I was 30 years old, and so I'm accustomed to that. You have to have a mix of humility and a sense that you can help move the ball down the field. You have to balance those two things. But what helped me here was a deep knowledge of the community. I know a lot of people. We had done a lot of stories on the disparity between Southern Dallas being the poorer part of town economically. And so our paper won a Pulitzer Prize in 2010 with a deep exploration of the gaps between North and South. I had done a project in the early 2000s, which I think it was the first of its kind in the country, where a news staff combined with with Booz Allen, a McKinsey Bain-like group, to analyze the effectiveness of city government in Dallas. It was a very deep dive, and then we came back 10 years later and looked at it again. But projects like that, I don't think anything we ever did got more visibility or drew more interest than that project and the follow-up. So I'd also done a lot of work with universities. I did joint appointments with University of Texas, with University of Texas at Arlington, with UT Dallas, and with SMU, in which I worked with the presidents of those universities, or a dean in the case of UT Austin, but the presidents elsewhere. And we were able to hire specialists to serve on the newspaper staff, but also teach at the universities. So I felt comfortable in a university environment. And I always felt that journalism and higher education had a lot in common. They both have deep First Amendment roots, and they both live by ideas. And so I kept that in mind when I came over. That still didn't stop me from having just incredibly deep, steep learning curves. So, yeah.
I don't think it would be normal if you had not. You mentioned
That's right.
you mentioned that you have since you were 30 years old had hot seat jobs. Have you what have you done to manage to find a balance between the job and your health and personal life?
Well, I can get away when I'm home. I can get away. I like to read. I like to exercise. I like to lift weights, and I always have. And those things, help keep me balanced. I think I've had a good family life. My, a strong, supportive wife. I've, 2 kids who have done well. So it was fun raising them. So family was a big balancing factor, I would say.
How did you land the job at UNT Dallas? How did that happen?
Well, yeah, let's put it this way. I didn't seek it out. I got a call.
Mm-hmm.
I think a day after. So there was a story in the Dallas Morning News about my retirement. And it was the same day Mike Rawlins won the day after Mike Rawlins won his reelection bid for his second term. Mm-hmm. And so the next day I got a call from Lee Jackson, who at the time was the chancellor of the UNT system, breakfast. So I said, sure. I thought, I'd known Lee for a long time, and I thought, well, he's going to say, good luck, and if you ever want to teach or something, give us a call. But then he started talking about this job. Oh, Lord have mercy. It was no one was more surprised than I was. Let's put it that way.
And was it when it happened, when you realized I'm being offered a job as the president of the University of North Texas Dallas? Did you have to think about it for a while, or were you like, no, I'm going to do this?
I think it started more as, would you be interested if this was possible?
Mm-hmm.
And so we had lunch every week for a month, and I did a lot of due diligence. I talked to a lot of people. I read several books on being college president.
There's actually a book for everything.
And just to get lessons learned by William Bowen, the former late Princeton president, was the most helpful. And I talked to a lot of people in the community who just thought, that school has so much potential. It needs higher visibility, and it needs a closer sense of mission, a tighter sense of mission and vision. And so the more honestly, the more I thought about it, the more exciting the prospect became. So anyway, one thing led to another, and I started on August 3rd.
And what is your goal for UNT Dallas? What is the mission? Has it been defined?
I gave it about 3 months because I had done a lot of work that summer,
mm-hmm.
Talking to people at the university, people in the community, other people in higher education I knew, and I felt that this was a university that was created to serve a deeply underserved urban population in Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
And it hadn't really fulfilled its destiny yet. So, not surprising, since it's a relatively young university. But I did feel that I couldn't just jump in and start having a strategic planning session the first few weeks. I gave it about 3 months. By November, we were pretty deep into creating, refining our mission and vision. The best thing we did really was say that our vision was to be a pathway to social mobility for urban Dallas students. And that really gave us legs.
Mm-hmm.
Because there really was no other university that was focused just on that population. A lot of universities have a piece of it, but it's not their vision. It's part of their vision. For us, this is our vision, serving urban youth. And by that I mean City of Dallas, inner ring suburbs, Dallas County Community College District, and 90% of our students come from those areas. And nobody else serves that population.
Bob, do you find it difficult or hard to get the message out to some of your target audience, being urban youth, that you can go to college? That it's a lot of them, it never crossed their mind, but getting that message to them that it's a possibility.
Yeah, well, that's why we created, out of that plan, we realized that as a relatively small university, I mean, we've grown a lot. We're up 51% in the last 3 years. So we're the fastest growing university in North Texas, but we're still 3,750 students. And I'm trying to get to 5,000 by 2021, and plenty of land to grow. But what became very clear to me is we needed partnerships. And so I worked very hard, along with my team, to build partnerships with area school districts, particularly the Dallas Independent School District. We built a very strong partnership with the Dallas County Community College District. And then we started building industry partnerships and foundation partnerships. And of course, the big collective, the Commit partnership, which is all about enhancing educational attainment. They were probably my best partners starting out with, because they had a lot of data that was not widely understood. They had gotten almost all the school districts in Dallas County to share data. I think only 2 of the 15 weren't at the time. Now all of them are. So that was a font of information. I thought I knew all the details, but I didn't. And so I really fairly quickly got a grasp of just kind of what the needs were, and that our mission was really important because, we had a lot of kids graduating from high school in Dallas County, nearly 30,000 a year, but only about 25% were college ready. So, and in some of the districts nearest our campus, it was much lower than that, way lower, sometimes under 10%. So, and only about 50% in the high poverty high schools were even doing something after they're in higher education after graduation. So yeah, the mission was huge. And so that just kind of reignited our fire around, look, we're onto something here. We have really got to throw ourselves into this, and we have to be better and better every year at training this population.
Now, you mentioned earlier the Commit program, and I want to make sure I tie this together correctly. Is that the same? Is that the part of the program that's the Dallas County Promise?
Yes,
okay.
They're very much. So when we were invited to help plan the Dallas County Promise, excuse me, it was Commit, Joe May of the Community College District, Michael Hinojosa of the Superintendent of Dallas, me, and their teams, our teams. We worked on this. But Commit, brought this just incredible team to play, and then they, particularly Joe May and Todd Williams of Commit, recruited a really dynamic guy named Eric Bann to lead the Promise program. So that's kind of how it started. But the idea was, let's borrow off some of the great Promise programs around the country, and let's improve on it. Let's don't let any student in Dallas County feel that they can't go to college. When we say all, we mean all. And so, I mean, it's a huge idea.
It is.
And fortunately, the community college, thanks to Bob Thornton, who had helped create the Rising Star Foundation many years ago, he's a prominent Dallas businessman, who's still very involved in educational issues and in the Rising Star Foundation. He had built a pretty big foundation, recruiting high net worth donors to give to the foundation. So there was a reservoir of funds there that they felt it was good to put it in a third party, which I guess is commit, or a commit related program. So there's arm's length. But the point is that there was money to get this thing started, and I'm glad there was. It would have made it a lot more difficult if those funds weren't available.
Is this something that you feel, Bob, could be grown across the state?
Yes.
Okay.
First of all, YTexas is visionary to focus its foundation on educational attainment, because and I know there are other things involved, but it's so important to the future of the state, because as all of your CEOs know, we just import too much talent from out of state. Mm-hmm. When we have a potential talent pool here that can serve most of our needs, but they got to be ready. and right now, the disparity between kids who come from higher income households and kids who come from lower income households, the kids from higher income, I mean, they get degrees,
right?
And the kids in lower, they're just not to the. So it's a big mismatch, and so all of us have to pull together to turn this around, so that opportunity exists for all students in Texas.
Yeah, it's just simple math that if you enlarge the pool of talent, you're going to have more talent.
That's exactly right. So you guys are onto something, and I think I don't think Dallas County is exceptional in its understanding of this. I think they just were fortunate to have some highly organized people to really get the commit partnership going. But Houston, San Antonio, Austin, any area in the state, and some of them are working on it already. I know Houston's working on it. All of these places can do the same thing that's going on here, and you got to hope too that you have strong corporate support and strong legislative support for this, because it's in the best interest of the state, to have more young people who have credentials. Mm-hmm. Right now in Dallas County, 65% of the jobs require at least a associate's degree, and only 37% have them in this county, and statewide it's only 42%. So, when the state says we want 60% of our 25 to 34-year-olds, those prime first earning years, to have a credential by 2030, we're statewide at 42%. Closing that 18% gap that's what we're all talking about. How can we help do that? How can we be part of the solution to getting that gap closed?
Bob, is there anything in legislation on the horizon that you look forward to, or it concerns you?
I think, first of all, the governor has done a good job pulling together some of the best financial minds in the state, mm-hmm. To help guide him about what's needed, first of all, for pre-K to 12 funding, school finance. So I think that's going to be, a lot of work has been done by people on both sides of the aisle to help solve the school finance issues around the state. So I think there's a lot there. Of course, in higher education, we don't want to get forgotten about. But I think getting that pre-K to 12 financial pipeline right, improving it over the next few sessions is going to be really critical to the future of the state. At the same time, everything from undergraduate education all the way up to medical school graduation. Improvements need to be made in policy at every level. I mean, we're graduating a lot of medical students, but we don't have enough residencies in the state. So guess what happens? You get a bunch of really smart kids graduate from medical school, and they're going out of state for residencies, and sometimes they don't come back.
Right.
So what kind of sense does that make?
Right. We're going to keep that talent here in our home state. But, Bob,
That's right.
I've been in the media for 30 years. And I think you and I could probably share a story with someone. It's amazing what upsets people. And going back to your days in journalism, I was wondering if you could share with us, the first thing that comes to mind is a phone call or email that someone on your staff would get because you got a word wrong in the crossword puzzle. Did something like that ever happen?
Oh, yeah. One of my favorite stories. I mean, it could have happened in the Dallas Morning News, and there are similar things like this. But a friend of mine was editor of the St. Paul Pioneer Press in the 80s, and they had won their first Pulitzer Prize. Mm-hmm. And they had a big story on page one. And when she came in, to work, there were a stack of messages waiting for her, and she thought, "Oh, good, they're going to just tell me how happy they are that the paper won its first Pulitzer Prize." But the problem was that the paper that morning had published the wrong snowplow side of the street. And so all over St. Paul, people were getting tickets because the paper had put the wrong side. So people parked on the left side when they were supposed to park on the right, and they were getting tickets. And so hardly any of those messages were about the Pulitzer Prize. Were about the paper screwing up the snowplow schedule. And so yes, that happened. Believe me.
It's such a great example, Bob, of what's important to people.
You got to get the little stuff right.
Oh yeah.
Or people don't trust you on the big stuff. It's just that way.
All my years on the radio, if I said the wrong time, if it was 7:35 and I said it was 6:35, people went crazy.
Oh yeah.
It was. It's.
I hear you. I lived it.
I'm sure you did. I really have enjoyed chatting with you, and I appreciate you taking the time to be a part of the CEO Insider podcast here, brought to you by YTexas. Thank you, Bob.
I really enjoyed it. Good luck.
All right, take care of yourself.
Bye.